Hi there, my name is Shelley Swap. I'm one of the nutrition providers here at Vitality Health Matrix, and I am going to talk to you just briefly today around a couple of really important botanicals or herbal medicine that is particularly helpful if you are struggling with vaginal dryness, which can completely mess with your libido, right? So let's jump in and let me share my screen really quick to help so you can see what I'm going to be introducing you to, and then I can get this presented as well. One of these days, they'll have a cleaner way of doing this. So I want you to just be aware that if you're struggling with vaginal dryness, it's way more common than we have been told, the more than we like to believe. Just 1 year into menopause, 2/3 of women say they experience vaginal dryness. 2/3 after 8 years, that number rises to 84%. And yet only 25% are looking for any sort of treatment or support. Most women are told that they just have to grin and bear it. And that's terrible. We've been told that about most things in women's health, right? Especially once we get past, you know, well, once you start into menstruation, oftentimes we're just told that we need to grin and bear all those symptoms, and that's not the case. So let me introduce you to this beautiful Ayurvedic herb. Most of you have probably heard of ashwagandha. Ashwagandha in Ayurvedic medicine is actually known as um, a masculine herb or an herb for men's health. And Shatavari, you may hear it pronounced both ways, but Shatavari is known as the women's tonic herb. It is the one that is treasured for women's health. The nickname is they call it what the one. I have 100 husbands up there, but it's with 100 husbands, and I'll show you in just a moment where that comes for. Because when it comes to um, a lot of traditional or um, ancient medicine, they use the doctrine of signatures, and so they utilize things like what does it look like to help them name it and to describe it. And so as you can see, this is the reason all those roots is one of the reasons that it's referred to as 100 husbands, but it's also got some great lore behind it that women that take this herb on a regular basis could have the stamina to be able to keep up with 100 husbands. Not that anybody would want to. Sorry, that was probably sidestep. So, stress, it's one of these really phenomenal herbs for stress, for cortisol support, to help our body to be able to better manage all of the stressors, whether they be physical or chemical or emotional, or psychological, come into our lives. It's wonderful to help us manage those types of things in women. I mean, we all carry a lot of stress, right? So it is the most widely used and respected women's herb in Ayurvedic medicine, which is something to take note of. Are not there are when we look at where has women's health been prioritized over thousands of years? Certainly not in Western medicine, certainly not in Western herbalism as much, but definitely in some of these traditional medicine practices. They still do a better job of taking care of women's health than we do. And so knowing that this is like the premier Ayurvedic herb for women's health says something. It has the ability to help with muscle spasms, so it's wonderful for cramping and those types of things, but it's also antifungal and anti-candida, so it's great. So it also has some actions on the gut. So we know that this is a broad spectrum herb and it has lots of different actions that it causes in the body. It's high in B vitamins and bioflavonoids, which is pretty rare for an herb. We don't see a lot of herbs that are high in B vitamins. Because of that, and for a couple of other reasons, it is one of the herbs that we reach for when we need to build blood, when we need to build white blood cells, specifically in the cells. It's wonderful to help control heavy bleeding. It's wonderful we've got some great research around hot flashes, vaginal dryness, and fertility. So in Ayurvedic medicine, there are over 1,800 studies that show that this particular herb is helpful in women's health. But it is not as well known as ashwagandha, which is kind of wild to think about and typical, right? It still has a global impact of about $335 million a year, whereas ashwagandha, I think, is like 635 million. So it's getting there. but don't be surprised if you've never heard of it. That doesn't mean that it is not a really valuable herb. It is salty, it is cool. When we're talking about energetics, when we look at herbs, we want to look at like what are the things that it helps to, what does it bring? What are the energies that it brings to the body? And this herb is considered salty, it's considered cooling, it's considered moistening, and a little bit astringent, which means in herbal medicine that it helps you to hold on to the fluids, which is what we want, right, in our tissues. It's got some great research, as you can see, around PCOS, in increasing antioxidant levels in the body, helping with hormone balance. It is also known as an aphrodisiac. So it is incredibly safe. It has one of the highest safety ratings during pregnancy and breastfeeding, just in case you're in that time of life or you're worried about it. It is also really helpful to normalize the physiology of the ovary, which is something that we really lean on when we're in that fertility space, working on helping women to maintain or to build their fertility. But it's really important also as we go through this perimenopause and menopausal space when things start to get wonky. So it is also wonderful herb for sleep and for hot flashes. It helps with menopause. There's a study, believe me, I'm going to look this up so that I don't misquote it. It was a study in India. It was done on menopausal women who were experiencing menopause symptoms. They took 250 milligrams of extract twice a day. I do have a couple of different forms up here. I'll show you. They did this based on quality of life score. So they were taking they had questionnaires, right? And their quality of life, and this was blinded. So they had people who were taking a placebo, and then they had people who were taking the Shatavari, and they didn't know who was getting what. But those who were taking the Shatavari, their quality of life scores improved from 70 out of 120 to 95 out of 120 after 60 days. They saw hot flashes, night sweats, and emotional distress. So that kind of mellowing out of the highs and lows and the mood swings, and their depression and anxiety scores were cut in half, while the placebo group didn't see any improvements across those 60 days. So that gives you a little bit more information around why this is such a treasured herb. One of the other fun things, those of you that have embraced strength training or working on building up your strength, there's another small study that's worth noting of participants that took 500 milligrams of a 10-to-1 extract. So that's a pretty strong extract. You will find that in something like a tablet or in a prepared powder. So that's about 5 grams of herb a day. You would find that's easier to get in an extract. And over time, over I think the course of about 20 weeks, they said they saw their grip strength improve. And of course, they had that blinded as well. And so those that were not taking it did not see the same amount of grip strength. But that's kind of a fun side note to know that it also helps with physical resilience as well as mental and emotional resilience. So it's one that I love. It's one of the few herbs that I comfortably recommend as a single, meaning most herbs in herbal medicine work better in combination with others. It's kind of like women. We do better when we are all kind of using our strengths and then bringing all of our strengths together and creating a whole. And oftentimes that is the best way to use herbs is in a formula. And you'll see that in our Vitality private label things as well. You'll see that it has a number of different herbs that help do different things at different times in the body, because we can't just support the ovaries and support stress and not do anything to help with digestion and not do anything to help build blood and not do anything to help with the liver. We want to be doing all of those things simultaneously so that because the body is always doing all of those things at the same time, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Glenya. It's another herb that you probably haven't heard of. It's considered a Chinese herb, but you'll find it in all sorts of different traditions. It's a beautiful little herb that grows on sandy beaches. So it grows here in the US as well. And you'll find it along the coastal shoreline. This is a really blown up picture of it, but if I were to make it more probably the size that you would see it in the natural habitat, you might be like, oh, I've seen that before when you've walked along the beaches, because it grows abundantly here in the US. I had a client years ago, one of my first clients, who came to me, and she was struggling with a number of the things, right? Hot flashes, weight gain. She had this really interesting symptom. She had a burning tongue, and she had massive vaginal dryness. Well, we were able to kind of peel back and take care of one thing after another, got her weight settled down, got her her system calmed down. She got rid of the hot flashes and the night sweats. And we eventually found out that she was B12 deficient, and that was what was causing the tongue burning sensation. And it was because it was what, 10, 15 years ago. And so there was a big movement, a big push to go on a full plant-based diet. And genetically, she just wasn't, it wasn't appropriate for her. She wasn't getting enough B12. And so increasing her B12 did help that considerably. But her last one, the most plaguing symptom was this vaginal dryness. She was like 50, 51, 52, was in menopause. We were in that like 12 months where we were waiting to see if she was going to be finished. Um, and it was really getting to be challenging for her because she wanted to have a really pleasurable experience with her husband, and it was not going well. And we tried Shatavari, we tried licorice, we tried a bunch of different things. And I found some research on, sorry, I'm going to go back to this little one. I found some research in some Chinese medicine medical journals around Glenya and vaginal dryness. And this little herb is actually well known for um, moistening the tissues in the lungs and in the esophagus. It's used all the time for coughing, for people who get that really dry cough, or who get sores in their esophagus and those types of things. But somewhere along the line, somebody studied it for vaginal dryness, and I ordered her a tincture from my herbal apothecary at the time. And I had her just take a 5 milliliters. I'd had her take it twice a day, morning and night. And sure enough, within about 2 weeks, she started to report that the vaginal dryness was the best that she'd ever seen it. And she was taking some other herbs with it. So I didn't want to bring in a full new formula because I had her on a couple of other formulas that were doing a really good job of taking care of her. But this is one that these are a combination of some other herbs that you may find with it. Licorice root is also one to be thinking about, especially if you have low cortisol. It's a deeply harmonizing herb, so it helps all the other herbs work together. Ophiopigon is a beautiful little grass that probably grows natively in the area that you live in. It's the roots of that grass that are deeply cooling and deeply replenishing. So you probably are getting the theme here. We're looking at herbs that are cooling, that are replenishing, and that are in Chinese medicine considered yin replenishing or yin restorative. And yin would be our yin is our fluids, are those vital fluids that keep our skin supple, that keep our hair from getting dry and breaking, keep our nails from breaking, allow us to have tears and saliva and all those types of things. And so these are some of these herbs that we want to pull on, that would be supportive to things like Shatavari and supportive to Glenya, that would be more of the main player in a formula. Mulberry leaf, like mulberry trees grow all over the United States, and so you might even have one in your backyard. And Solomon seal, which is a really beautiful and hard to find herb. And it's kind of interesting when you look at the old literature around Solomon seal. It's known as a yin nourishing herbs, and it's described as an herb that is used extensively for steaming bones disorder, which I'm sure if any of you have ever had a hot flash or a night sweat, you can totally understand what it means to feel like your bones are steaming. And there's other incidents, right? There's other disease processes that can create that feeling of internal heat, but also is one that we use for irritability and constipation. So this is probably the best little product that I know of right now that's easy to get over the counter. It's not an alcoholic tincture, it's a glyceride, so it's made with glycerin. So you need to take a little bit more than you would if you were taking a tincture made out of alcohol. But it's wonderful with the glycerin because it's going to be really soothing to your esophagus, to all of your tissues. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to soothe and restore those tissues and cool those tissues off. So a liquid extract, 20 to 30 drops, or one of these full squeeze of these. It's a pretty good size bottle. And you can just put it in juice or water, and you can take it up to 4 times a day. I have some people I have them double that dose in the morning and double that dose in the evening. It's also a very, very safe herb. It's considered highest on the safety profiles, just like Shatavari is, meaning that we don't have really a lot of information about, we don't see that it interacts with a lot of medications because it doesn't act on a lot of those pathways that pharmaceuticals act on. So it's one that we can gently bring in to help support and cool and moisten and not have to worry about it creating havoc in the body because it's working against some of the other processes that we would love to have, that we need to have going on at the same time. So I hope you found that helpful. And if you have other questions for me and would like to or get some other information around how to be maybe better utilizing some of these botanicals, I'm happy to be of support. You can tag me in the chat or in your group. And I hope until next time, you can be well. Take care.